and that's kind of what like this is why this vineyard is so fascinating to me, is that it's this juxtaposition. Like you've got this hot climate
Yeah.
with no water, and yet it makes a very pretty wine.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
So we're here today at the Paso Robles Podcast with Ryker Wall from
Cordant Winery.
Cordant Winery.
And then I have my own project with my wife called Idola, Idola.
Okay.
And then I make wines for a gentleman, and his project's called Misty Oaks. So we're just launching that this year as well.
Oh, okay. So you got 3 things going on at once.
3 at once, yeah.
Is that a normal thing to do in the wine industry?
It's somewhat normal, yeah. I mean, here in Paso, it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
My mentor Anthony Yant, who I worked with at Denner, I mean, that dude has got his hand in 12 projects. It seems,
Wow.
He's a really, really busy guy. But I mean, there's a lot of people that want to own wineries and want to make a bunch of different wines, and so yeah.
Yeah, so we'll get to that point where like how the industry is and everything right now, because I know we just got out of like a slump.
Yeah,
from my understanding.
Yeah,
but I mean, there has to be something good if we're still moving forward with things, right?
For sure.
Yeah,
definitely.
So this is the first time we're doing a tasting in the Paso Robles podcast. Hopefully, my words don't start slurring at the end because we don't have a dump bucket, which is fine.
It's just going to make the podcast better, to be honest.
Let's make it. There was one time I did have wine a long time ago when I was testing it with buddies, and there was part 1 and part 2. Part 2 never made it publicly.
Well, I mean, I think famously Rogan, like when he first started doing podcasts, had to cut the last 3 hours of all the, because they were just
they were just sloshed.
Oh yeah.
That's funny. So today we're tasting all 3. Is that what you said?
Yeah. So I actually brought 2 wines from Cordant, 2 wines from my project, and then the last one I just brought the 1. So we got 5 wines total.
Okay, sweet. While we taste, we can talk about how you started, where you're coming from. Are you local? Like, did you grow up here?
No. So I grew up in Thousand Oaks.
Okay.
And then came up here for Cal Poly. I didn't study wine and vit.
Yeah.
I studied kinesiology and religious studies. So
what's kinesiology?
Like sports medicine, physiology, biomechanics, things like that. So like I kind of thought that I might be, a sports physiologist, go work for a professional cycling team or go to like, physical therapy school or something.
Yeah.
But, you start tasting wine on the weekends when you're at Cal Poly. And
you forget about the other stuff.
Yeah, you're like, wow, this is kind of sweet, man. Like, maybe I'll do this, and just kind of got bit by the bug. So
that is so interesting, because I hear stories of how people started, and it's usually like a complete 180 of what they're usually doing. And that's cool. For some reason, the movie Concussion came to mind with Will Smith.
Yeah, no, it's not uncommon, honestly. Yeah. Like a lot of winemakers, had previous careers or like previous just interests, and
Do you need a corkscrew or?
I came prepared.
Okay, sweet. You can do like ASMR style if you want.
Oh man, I don't think I could do that. So I think what we'll do is we'll start with the white wine from my wife's and my project.
Okay.
My wines tend to be a little bit lighter.
Okay.
From there, then we'll go into the Cordant wines, and then we'll finish with the Misty Oaks if that works for you.
That's perfect for me, man.
Cool, man. So I guess I'll kind of spiel the project a little bit. After college, I got bit by the wine bug. My wife was doing PA school in Miami. And so we moved there. There's obviously no vineyards in Miami, Florida.
No, I don't think so.
And so I kind of went down the sommelier rabbit hole a little bit, and I thought I would do restaurants, but ultimately, kind of wanted a little bit more creative outlet in my work. And so kind of knew we always wanted to come back to the Central Coast. And so we did, and I started working at Denner there, and just kind of fell in love with the wines of Paso and all that. And always in the back of my head kind of had this idea of what if we were to ever start a winery, like what the project would look like. We've always really gravitated towards natural wines or wines more of minimal intervention, and it didn't really seem like a lot of people were doing that here in Paso.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what the Idola project is. It's Mediterranean varietals. We actually make 5 wines total. I just brought the 2 blends, which are kind of the brother sister pair and kind of like the base for the brand. And so yeah, the white is called A la Riviera. It's primarily Vermentino, a little bit of Chenin Blanc, and a little bit of Roussanne.
Okay.
And our focus is on freshness, vibrancy, and texture in the wines. And so, yeah. Sorry, I poured you a little heavy there.
Yeah, it's okay. Like I said, if it in the last half hour, this might change things, but
Yeah, exactly.
This episode is sponsored by Lion Pro Flooring. Give new life to your floors with beautiful, professionally installed flooring. Whether it's hardwood, luxury vinyl, or carpet, your home deserves a quality you can feel and craftsmanship you can trust. Serving Paso Robles in all of SLO County, Lion Pro Flooring is your local expert in transforming spaces. Call or text 805-712-3710 for a free estimate today. That's 805-712-3710. Lion Pro Flooring, when quality matters. So let me ask you this. How long have you been out of school and into the wine?
So it's been, it'll be 8 years this coming year. And then I've been kind of on the production side for 6.
Okay.
I was a somm for 2 years, sommelier, restaurant manager.
Okay.
They kind of loop you in together.
Yeah.
But yeah, on the production side, I started at Denner as an intern and then kind of worked my way up and kind of became the cellar master, worked the tasting room a little bit. And yeah.
So you went to Cal Poly for something completely different. And did you finish your degree there?
Yeah.
And then you decided to learn another trade and take the course that way.
Yeah. My senior year, I studied to be a sommelier more than I studied for like any college class that I was doing. So yeah.
So I'm trying to learn how to like describe the wines and everything. And when it comes to whites, I get like, the kiwi, stuff like that, the acidity a little bit, but this is not like super acidity. It's actually pretty calm.
Yeah. I like to take the wines through the whites, especially through malolactic fermentation. So it's a secondary ferment that converts malic acid, which is like a lemon, into lactic acid, which is like yogurt or milk.
Okay.
And so even though the wine certainly has a lot of acidity, it's round. And it gives like a sweetness in the mid palate, even though there's no sugar in the wine.
Yeah.
It's like the impression of sweetness.
Ah.
Yeah.
So how'd you decide? Okay, first of all, do you guys have a vineyard or you source the grapes?
So we source all the grapes for all the wines except for one wine, which is a little Zinfandel vineyard that we farm ourselves. It's 1 acre.
Okay.
It's like an older couple that they can't care for it anymore. And I kind of learned about it and offered to farm it for them and make the wine. And I give them a couple cases of wine and they let me farm it, which is amazing.
Did they already have the wine, the vines there?
Yeah, it's a about 35-year-old little head train dry farm Zinfandel vineyard in Templeton. So yeah, that's the and we make a varietal wine off of that vineyard. And then we source everything else. Yeah.
Okay. Now, how did you find the people that you wanted to source from?
That's sort of like one of those things where you got to know someone.
Yeah.
I mean, there's websites that kind of list like what varietals are and all that.
Yeah.
But it's kind of more like, you hear of someone that's making really great Vermentino or really great Chenin Blanc. Like, for example, I worked with the Chenin Blanc vineyard when I was at Denner.
Oh, okay.
And so I kind of knew of that.
Yeah, you just hit them up.
Yeah, and then when we moved to the red, like the Grenache, for example, is from a vineyard from Jordan Collins, who's Neil Collins. He's the winemaker at Lomadrone. They source a lot from that vineyard. They kind of dictate the farming at that vineyard, and I'm friends with him. So you kind of like honor. We go running together.
Yeah,
and he'd be, oh yeah, I got a little Grenache. I'm like, cool, I'd love some of that. So yeah.
No. So I met you at downtown Paso talking to Andre because I know he's closing up shop. Are you allowed to talk about what potentially might happen?
Yeah. So, I mean, Cordant, like everyone, like, you know, we've been kind of struggling to get people into the door, and especially where Cordant is currently located, which is to the entrance of Tin City. People tend to kind of just blast right past us and go into Tin City. And so, you know, the downtown scene in Paso is really becoming something special, especially with the new hotel going in.
Yeah.
And you got, you know, a bunch of new restaurants, and some great wineries are already there. And so it just kind of felt like a natural progression for us. And so Cordant's actually, we just signed the lease. We're going to be taking over a little tasting room space next to Il Cortile.
Oh, okay.
And so very, very excited about that. Yeah. And, you know, we're just trying to, you know, give people something kind of different than just the traditional tasting room experience.
Yeah.
Kind of more come in, like, let's sit down on some couches. Let's like just drink some wine and get to know one another, and, you know, come in before dinner, grab a glass of wine, and then go to dinner or something like that. So
is that right next to the Symbiosis? Or
it is Symbiosis.
Okay. Yeah. So they're not going to be there anymore?
Yeah, she's kind of trying to, I think, exit the industry a little bit.
Got it.
And the space is really cool. It's a tiny little thing. I just love how cozy it feels, and
This episode is sponsored by Del Pueblo Furniture in Paso Robles. Skip the credit card headache. Talk to Roger and get 0% in-house financing on quality furniture you'll love. Visit them at 1030 Railroad and 10th Street, or call 805-239-5942. That's Del Pueblo Furniture. Comfort you want, payments you can handle. Y sí, se habla español. Just ask for Roger. Well, this is really good.
Thank you.
It's really easy to drink. Like
That's
I said,
the idea.
It didn't feel, like I said, like the city was like, I guess that's the best way to describe it, is round. You know, there's nothing there. You're not like kind of wincing a little bit or anything.
Totally.
You're just like, okay, it's good.
Yeah. What's fascinating too was, like, we find that, like, the wines really calm down when they're in bottle. So you taste them in barrel and they are kind of fierce, and like you get them to tank and they shut down. And then once they go to bottle, they'll kind of go through some phases. Yeah. This has been in bottle for about 11 months now. And I feel like it's finally kind of come around. Okay. Every time we taste it, we kind of always remark, we're like, wow, I mean, that white's tasting pretty good today.
Yeah. Do you, so I know the bottle container usually helps with the lighting and stuff like that. Do you also keep it in, like, in a darker room or a lighter room?
Yeah. We keep it in cool, dark cellar. Okay. And I'm fortunate enough that we live in San Luis Obispo, so it doesn't really get too hot down there. Yeah. We're in like a townhouse, and the bottom floor is the garage, and it's north facing. So like I got all the wine, not all these wines, but like all of our personal collection down there, and like never gets above 65 degrees.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I tried keeping wine in my garage, and then one summer I started noticing like 75, 78. I'm like, I got to get it out of there.
Yeah. The corks will pop.
Really?
Yeah, the little space of air will warm up and expand, and it'll push the corks out.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, this is this is the red. This is a Grenache, a grape called Valdegui, which is the same vineyard as the Chenin Blanc, and then a little bit of Syrah, and again, kind of focusing more on freshness, vibrancy. We don't add any water. We don't add any acid. We don't even add yeast. It's all native. Yeah. All the vineyards we work with are at a minimum organic. Sometimes they're taking them to the next level, and we're seeking out more of these that are more like regenerative. Okay. So they'll incorporate like sheep into the vineyard in the wintertime to graze, and they obviously fertilize and stuff. Okay. But yeah, there's no like inorganic sprays or anything that goes in there. And then when the grapes come in, and we basically crush them, let them sit, and they kind of spontaneously begin to ferment. And then we go to barrel once they're done. And both the white and the red, we only age about 10 months. You always hear like, oh, you got to age it 2 years in barrel. And we don't necessarily subscribe to that. Like I've had wines like that are amazing. But again, like the earlier you can capture it in bottle, the fresher it is typically. And I like to kind of see it evolve in bottle rather than evolve in barrel.
Yeah. So you mentioned at least organic. And then you mentioned sheep.
Yeah.
Does that make it non-organic? Is that what that? How does that? Elaborate more on the organic and sheep, and then is there cows? Is there other grazing animals?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole host of ways to farm a vineyard.
Yeah.
It's a spectrum, let's say.
Okay.
And everyone's got their own philosophy, and to be honest, like every vineyard needs to be farmed kind of differently.
Okay.
Like certain vineyards have more disease pressure than others. Like the spacing of the vine, the type of varietal, how dense the canopy, all that is a factor. But what we really love and what Idola kind of stands for is sort of this, it's the circle of life. It's about kind of trying to capture energies from one system and putting them into another.
Yeah.
And so by, incorporating sheep and doing cover crops, so like they'll plant legumes, oats, barley, things like that in the winter that help fix nitrogen from the atmosphere to the soil. The sheep then graze. And obviously when they poop, it's fertilizer for the vines as well.
Yeah.
And then, so that's kind of where they're getting the nutrients for the grapes and the shoots and everything. And then, when we drink the wine, we always think about that kind of stuff. And it's a way to kind of connect to nature. It's a way to, it's a spiritual practice. But especially when you make these kinds of wines, you feel that way. Mm-hmm. And, for me too, it's less about the objectivity of wine. Whereas I could certainly make a better wine if I, used a specific yeast strain, or if I, maybe pulled a big Saunier and then watered back and adjusted everything. Sure, objectively it might make a better wine, but subjectively, I love the idea of just kind of working with what we have, kind of taking a minimalist approach to it.
Okay.
And then, it's a total spiritual practice for us.
Now, did you find you just gravitated towards that process more than what usually happens in Paso?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, we've gravitated towards those wines for sure.
Okay.
Those wines to me have life in them. They're not these big, heavy things. They tend to be lighter in alcohol because we're not, we're kind of playing this, we'll call it a sketchy game of native yeast and bacteria. Things can go wrong.
Right.
And so acidity in wines are our friend. That's the buffer. The more acidity you have and the lower alcohol you have, there's more microbial stability in the wine.
Huh.
Yeah. It's like a jar of pickles never goes bad. There's acidity. That's why.
This episode is brought to you by Rad Scooter Deli on 6th Street. Craving something delicious in Paso Robles? Rad Scooter Deli on 6th Street has you covered. Enjoy tasty sandwiches, fresh salads, and smoothies like the Banana Nut Blast, my personal favorite. Kick back on the covered patio, sip on a cold beer and wine, and enjoy the easy parking. Order online for pickup or dine-in. And here's a treat. Use promo code PODCAST for $5 off your next order. That's PODCAST for $5 off your next order. Open daily from 6:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Rad Scooter Deli. Local flavor, fast and fresh. So when you started learning about wine and you gravitated towards this kind of process, who's the first wine you've had that was like, I want something like that?
Oh man, it's been a minute. It was probably something from Europe, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't really attuned to the natural wine scene in America.
Yeah.
And especially in California, back when we first started drinking wines. But I guess one that kind of comes to mind, there's a woman named Ariana Occhipinti down in Sicily. And her wines are wild. You kind of taste them, you're like, where's the fruit again? It's just, they're all over the place. But there's so much life in them. And it's just this energy that you don't drink them, you feel them. It's it's the weirdest thing. But we kind of did that. And then when we moved back, we started learning more about kind of people doing minimal intervention on the Central Coast and started drinking those wines. And we got to meet those people, and they continue to be a massive inspiration to us. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. The only reason I ask that question is there's always somebody somewhere that kind of affected you to be like, I got to do something like this, or at least And then you probably saw the opportunity here in Paso when there's not so much. You're like, oh, we're going to do something different. And that's the beauty about wines is it's your story, it's your method, it's your, how you like the final product is your execution of the whole thing.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think for us on this one too, like, yes, it's sort of our effort and everything, but at the same time, like, the less involved I am, the more you kind of realize that I'm just another cog in the wheel. Like, there's so many other factors that are out of my control.
Yeah.
And to like put my name on the label, for example, would be crazy in my opinion, because it's like, it's not my wine. I'm just like, I kind of help it get there.
Yeah. That's very true. And one more time, the red one was
Grenache, Valdegui, and Syrah.
It's very light. I like it.
Yeah, we like it slightly chilled as well.
Okay.
But yeah, it's definitely a light wine. The label says 13%. It's probably closer to 12.8 percent alcohol, and so again, like my wife's like 5 feet tall, 100 pounds. So for us to split a bottle of 16%, it's like sometimes you kind of walk away like, whoa.
Oh yeah, no. When I go tasting like downtown, I mean they're all great wines and everything.
They're great wines.
You can when you start. For me, I describe it as warm. Yes. When I taste it, it's warm. The alcohol content, and I'm like, well, how much is this? And like 14 point something, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, you feel it in your chest a little bit. Yeah. Should we move to some Cordants?
Sure. Yeah.
All right.
So Cordant, I went to the Paella and Pinot Paella in Templeton, and I helped a buddy of mine. She was serving paella, and Cordant was there. And I talked to him. I was like, "Hey, I met Ryker, and
cool. Yeah, you met Matthew.
Yeah, cool guy." And then
Matthew's great. Yeah, we love Matthew. Yeah, so Cordant's my day job, my real job. It's owned by David and Deanne Taylor. They've been around since 2014, actually. Okay. And their focus is on cool climate Pinot Noirs, so not necessarily Paso Robles. Yeah. We go more towards the coast, and we'll go as far south as Santa Barbara and as far north as Monterey. Okay. And then we also do Rhône varietals, which Paso is known for, and a big emphasis on dry farm vineyards for this one. So like spill it a little bit. No irrigation. Sorry, your couch has a stain now.
So I got what are those called? The Tide pens?
There you go. The wine off stuff. Yeah.
This episode is sponsored by Santos Bros Plumbing. Are you in need of a dependable and effective plumber you can trust? Look no further than Santos Bros Plumbing, your trusted local plumbers in Paso Robles, California. Call them now at 805-360-4679. That's Santos Bros Plumbing.
So yeah, no irrigation on some of these vines, which is pretty cool. And actually, I think, yes, both the wines I brought today the Radiant Pinot is not. But the Grenache that I brought is dry farm. So, but yeah, so this is Radiant Pinot Noir. This is one of 4 single vineyard Pinots that we make. Okay. This is as far south as we'll go, which is Santa Barbara, planted in the Santa Rita Hills, on diatomaceous earth, which is very similar to limestone. Okay. The soils were all once an ancient seabed. And the difference is that limestone's backbone is calcium carbonate, which is like bone. Yeah. And it makes the soil alkaline. So the pH is higher. So like Paso Robles soil pHs are like 8.2 sometimes. They're pretty high. Whereas diatomaceous earth backbone is silica. So it's like sand. There's lots of quartz in the soil. It's amazing. Okay. And its soil pH is acidic. And so, but they both give a similar texture on the wines. It's just the acidity in the wines are different. This tends to have rounder acidity, whereas limestone's kind of more precise down the front. And so what I love is like tasting this next to like a Burgundy. So Burgundy is planted on limestone. Okay. You can really feel similar tannin structures, but very different acid profiles. And this is a 23, by the way. So
this one stays on your tongue a lot longer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some new oak in this.
Yeah.
I don't use new oak in the Idola wines. The Cordant ones, I like new oak on Pinot Noir. It can handle it. And the focus on these is more texture. So like a new barrel tends to draw it out a little bit longer. We're looking for more sweetness in the mid palate, kind of bridges the gap a little bit.
No. This episode is sponsored by Western Janitor Supply. They have cleaning supplies and equipment for any workplace. Call today at 805-238-2112. They provide an extensive line of chemicals, paper products, and floor equipment. Again, that's Western Janitor Supply, located in downtown Paso Robles. So as far as the first two wines from you and your wife, where's that available?
The website's the best place.
Website? Okay.
Yeah. IdolaWineCo.com, just IDOLA. And then it's just us. So if you email us, one of us will answer.
But you don't have like an official like tasting room?
Not yet.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that's a long way out.
Right.
But yeah, just the website's the best place for us. And then Cordant obviously has a full facility, full tasting room. Like I mentioned, we're going to be opening up a place in downtown Paso. So yeah, and actually I brought you, this is the 2023, so this is going to be released in the fall. It's not released yet.
Okay. So
stellar vintage for us.
So come fall, it's going to taste a little bit different.
Yeah, that's the idea, hopefully.
So when I say it stays a little bit on the tongue, you said it's new oak. Is that the normal thing when people describe it as like, oh, this is lingering a little bit longer on the tongue?
It can be.
Okay.
It can also be the vineyard, but like certainly like as a winemaker, like when I'm going through and selecting what kind of barrel we're gonna put on the wine, we're looking for lengthening the palate. We're looking for trying to sweeten it up in the mid palate or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so far they're all good, man. I'm not gonna lie. That's
Thank you.
And that's the first Cordant. Pinot. So when I moved back into Paso in 2016, I didn't know a lot about wine. I mean the closest thing I got was like a Riesling, but that was like a dessert wine for me.
For sure.
And I moved back and I was like, you know what? I gotta go. I started doing all the tasting rooms downtown. Now there's way more. But I started with the Ascension Ridge.
Yeah.
And they had some pretty good Pinot, similar to what you're describing is the coastal Pinots and stuff like that. And of course, I like the Barrel Select one better, but
extra $40 a bottle.
Yeah. But I learned that's where I kind of like started like picking the brains, like, and I learned like I like the lighter reds, Pinot Noir, Petit Syrah, Tempranillo.
Yep.
Every once in a while Cabernet because like it feels nice to have a heavier one, but
totally
for the most part I'm like I can drink Pinot all day.
Yeah. I totally feel the same. I love Pinot Noir. We always fight to get texture into it just because the skins are really thin, and so it's really hard to get any kind of tannin, which is the tongue drying sensation. So like I'll offset that with whole cluster. So like this is about 30% whole cluster.
Okay.
So we include the stems in the ferment, and but it kind of makes the wine. It gives the wine like almost like a spark on the palate or something. Like it kind of makes it really tight, I guess.
Yeah.
Because I mean, really ripe Pinots without tannin can get glommy and kind of fat and. But to your point, like when they're light and they're tight and they're, they're awesome. You drink them all day.
Yeah. And when you're having a conversation and they just kind of linger around on your tongue a little bit, it just kind of flows with having a conversation, drinking Pinot.
Totally.
Yeah, which makes sense because Pinot's so popular. I think Pinot is like growing more and more in popularity when it comes to like events.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Like
for sure,
when you're tasting, like you can taste all these other wines, but then Pinot just kind of stands out more. Like I would revisit that.
Yeah, I think Totally. I mean, people when you're drinking like really big heavy wines, it's like drinking an IPA.
Yeah. You're done.
Yeah, man. It just blows your palate out, and then you're like, all right, I can't do this anymore.
My friend is like, oh, let's get a Wiki Jack. I'm like, yeah, but I kind of want to keep the night going. Like Wiki Jack. Yeah, that's so funny.
Yeah.
No, that's really good, man.
Thank you. We'll do the next one.
Yeah.
So, like I mentioned, this is a dry farm vineyard actually here in Paso. It's called Cane. So it's up on Willow Creek Road, kind of on the way up to Peachy Canyon.
So dry farm. Can you describe that a little bit more or expand on that?
Yeah, there's no irrigation.
Ah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Literally dry farm. Yeah.
So I'm only going to guess more earthy and...
Can be more earthy.
Okay.
There's more concentration.
Okay.
Because we're not diluting the berry. We're not adding water to the grapes, and so like the skin to juice ratio is oftentimes a little bit higher. I like it because it really shows the vintage off.
Okay.
Like this past year we haven't had a lot of rain.
Right. No.
So I haven't. We're just getting to kind of berry set right now, so we don't really know like how big the berries are going to be, but you could assume that it's going to be, smaller berries and stuff. And so the extraction protocol during fermentation is going to be slightly different. Yeah. Whereas like 2023, which I think this is 22. Yeah. 23 is a lot of rain. And so you get a bigger berry. And so I love that. Like I'm not a huge fan of, wines that taste exactly the same every single year. Right. We should celebrate even this vintage, which is a 22. I mean, 22 was a shit show of a year. Like everyone would agree. Like it was really hot, not a lot of rain, and it just stayed hot. Like it didn't cool off at nighttime or anything. And so people kind of like, usually you would spread the harvest out over 2 or even 3 months, and everyone picked like within 4 weeks. Wow. And so, yeah, we were absolutely slammed. And as a result too, you can see there's no color. Yeah. It's really low color.
Dark red kind of.
Yeah. And so the reason being is because when you have a hot vintage, the grapes ripen really fast in terms of sugar. So we accumulate a lot of sugar and we lose acidity really quickly. But because they don't hang on the vine, like the color on the skin doesn't get fully dark. Yeah. It's called phenolic ripeness. That's where texture in wine comes from. Oh, okay. And so that's why people will push their ripeness late, is because they want to pick for texture. Got it. We didn't really have that option in 22. You kind of had to just pick it. And so there's not a lot of color, but I would say this is a vintage for winemaking. So we actually blend a little bit of Petite Syrah into this. It's not on the label because it's only 10%. Yeah. But it's one of those little, winemaker tricks that takes something really dark and blend it in early. And so you can kind of bind up some of the tannin and you can get that plush mouthfeel.
This episode is brought to you by the White Wave Wellness. Choose to live a healthy and fulfilling life. Wellness is more than being free from illness. It is a process of change and growth towards a mentally and physically healthy lifestyle. Reach out to Jennifer Hale to learn more about how this water can change your life. Yeah.
I love Grenache too, especially from Paso. It gives a similar thing that the Pinot gives. No. More that red fruit, kind of more the spice. This vintage in particular is a little bit lighter. I could drink that all day.
No, this is good. It's not heavy. When you said dry, so my understanding with dry is, or when there's less water, the vines would try to go deeper for water, right? So you get that's why I'm guessing earthy or whatever, because now you're getting really down in the dirt, and then obviously the where and the hill it's going to be at as well, and but this is surprisingly light. Yeah. For you telling me dry.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to be like, I'm ready for like a cigar right now.
Totally.
But then I was like, never mind.
I think, I mean, and that's kind of what, like, this is why this vineyard is so fascinating to me, is that it's this juxtaposition. Like, you've got this hot climate
Yeah.
with no water, and yet it makes a very pretty wine.
Yeah.
And I just love that. You know,
It's
it's not what you would think it is.
Yeah. Well, I think it also helps that you said when did you harvest it? Like sooner than most, right?
This was picked very early compared to previous years.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the notes, but my guess is this was picked late September, which is, 2, 3, 4 weeks earlier.
Yeah.
Especially compared to 23. Like when we look at 2022 versus 2023, everything in 23 was picked 4+ weeks later than 22 because it was so cold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is really good. I get almost like a Jolly Rancher red candy or something.
Totally. Jolly Rancher.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's funny as I'm describing it. So I'm trying to find things that like I know.
Yeah.
And that's everybody's gonna be different, right? You know. So I have a buddy of mine. He always jokes around. I was like, "Oh, I taste licorice or something." He goes, "I smell burnt tire." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" He's a funny guy, but
I can't do with the tasting notes, to be honest. Like, I mean, it's sort of required as a part of my job to write tasting notes for wines, but it's so subjective and everyone tastes differently. And like, I mean, when I was a sommelier, like we were very by the books. Here's how you taste things.
Yeah.
And then as soon as you jump over to winemaking, like you almost have to forget everything because like I just don't care about is it a strawberry or a cherry?
Yeah.
Like it's whatever. It's more texture driven. So like we look at how it feels in the mouth because I think when we taste textural wines, like it's for like the average consumer, it's subconscious. You're kind of like, oh, I love this, but I don't really know why.
Right.
Like that's the spark is the texture. Again, if it's a cherry or a strawberry, who cares?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There was a movie called, I want to say Psalm for some reason. It was called Psalm on Netflix. It was this guy who wanted to be a sommelier. I don't know if you saw it.
I've seen it, yeah.
And his dad wanted him to be a bar owner or a restaurant owner or something like that.
Okay.
He's like, why don't we just, built a wine bar at the end? Or he was trying to incorporate wine in the bar or something like that. And his father wasn't having it. Oh, it was like barbecue, like something like barbecue. And he went and took the classes. And part of that process, there was like a test of where the wine came from to begin with in Australia, Greece, like, and regions and stuff like that. Is that something you had to go through too?
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to do, I mean, and I won't claim to be a very good blind taster. But yeah, we had to taste the wine, evaluate it. It's a process of deduction. And so you're kind of reduce. And it's a fun game to play.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think like now when I taste some of the newer wines from younger winemakers coming out of California versus France or Italy, like those lines are blurring more and more for me, at least.
Okay.
It's just the level of winemaking is getting really high for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I just in general have had kind of a problem with like this reductionist view of wine. I only drink Cabernet, or like I only like this and blah, blah, blah. And it's just more interesting to kind of go, oh yeah, like, I tasted Ryker's King Grenache and I love that wine. And then we tasted, someone else's, Syrah, and we love that one. Like it's sort of like, it's a form of art. You're kind of tasting what that winemaker's palate is. Yeah. And that's how you how you should drink, It's less about the varietal or honestly even where it comes from. Like just to say, oh, I like French wines.
Right.
What does that mean?
Yeah, that's true.
And
I'm noticing a lot of different ways that people are making wine. The amphora
Yeah.
I mean, just the way you're talking about the organic way, the dry, and I'm like, and I think I can see why you're talking about like the lines are getting blurred, because it's like kind of going back to old traditional ways, you know?
Yeah.
I remember like years ago, I heard stainless, right? And then all of a sudden stainless not as popular. So I'm just like, okay, so we're going back. We're doing oak. We're doing, you know, I feel like I've heard whiskey barrels as well.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I use concrete on the Vermentino, the white wine that we do. We do that in concrete, and then a mixture of barrel. But yeah, you're right. I mean, people are kind of getting back to like the old school way of doing it. And I love that. I think it's like, you know, it's the difference of going to, you know, a really fancy Michelin star restaurant versus eating your mom's cooking.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, they're both great, but like which one has like soul that kind of touches your heart? Of course, it's mom's. And it's because she is maybe not as fancy, but like she's putting so much more love and intention into it. And that's kind of, I guess, my overall philosophy, you know?
Yeah. Home cooking, home winemaking.
Yeah. So this will be the last one. This is a new project that I'm working on with a gentleman named Tim Stevens. He has a little 6-acre vineyard of Cabernet planted next to Cass Winery, so out on the east side. We also have just planted some head trained Sangiovese out there, about an acre. And then we've also we grafted over some of the Cabernet to Petit Verdot and Merlot. So this is actually Cabernet Syrah.
Okay. I was about to say, it's like, there's no way it's just Cab, because it's like, it almost tastes cold.
Yes. The Syrah brings like a blue fruit thing.
Okay.
Maybe a little eucalyptus, like kind of menthol-y, which Cabernet can have as well. But yeah, we're gonna, he's just coming out with kind of the wines, and then my lineup will come in, let's see, about a year from now. And it'll be kind of Cabernets from around the world. So it'll be like a Cab Syrah, Cab Sangiovese, Cabernet Merlot, and then just a straight Cabernet from the estate.
No.
And yeah, it's fun because, you know, I'm working with Pinot Noir and Burgundy varietals with Cordant. I'm working with Rhône varietals with Cordant. My wife and I are working with Mediterranean. So like we got Italian things and Greek things and all that. And then, you know, we were just missing Bordeaux. Yeah. So now we're working with Bordeaux as well. This is certainly like a bigger style of wine.
Yeah.
This definitely has more extraction. It's got more like a punchier barrel is what we would say. Like it's got a little bit more of a toast to it.
I'm guessing this one has the most alcohol out of all of them.
And the highest alcohol.
I can smell that. Like not rubbing alcohol, but like close to.
Definitely. But we forget, like, okay, what does alcohol do in a wine? Like, what's the purpose? Like, your brain perceives alcohol as sweetness. Like, if a wine had no alcohol, it would be so austere you couldn't drink it. It would be like eating a lemon.
Okay.
So you like when you make a margarita, right? It's lime and agave.
Yeah.
And so like the alcohol is what balances that tartness in the wine. And so when your wine has more alcohol, it's going to feel sweeter on the palate.
Yeah.
I can also extract more tannin, that tongue drying sensation, because tannin is alcohol soluble. And so those wines tend to be just bigger in general. They also require a little bit more aging. So this will be almost 2 years in barrel before we take it to bottle.
That's the one thing I that fascinates me about alcohol. It's another form of sugar, right? Technically,
yeah.
Yeah, and I remember seeing like on Animal Planet or something where like there were like this group of like type of pigs got extinct. There was a volcano or something happening, and they were eating these berries that fell off a tree that were alcoholic because of the sugar level or something, and they just got drunk.
Yep.
And they just all got destroyed.
Totally.
Again, another one I can probably drink more in the evening.
Yeah,
I would say
this one's like a cigar wine.
Yeah,
for sure.
Or cooler temp. You don't want to drink this on a hot day.
No, and that was like kind of one of the funny things I always thought with Paso is that like people are out, they're outside tasting in the
all
summer.
day. Yeah.
It's 100 degrees and you're drinking like huge red wine. So I'm like, give me something light and white.
Yeah.
I just want to refresh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, I mean, almost every single like big vineyard or big winery has the spectrum, right?
Yeah.
They obviously taste all of them, but people start leaning more towards like the crispier, fresher tasting wines during the day. And in the evening, they'll go revisit, those big reds.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's your ideal goal for yours and your wife's, like tasting room, your own vineyard at some point? Like what's the 10-year goal here?
I mean, I think like we've been really thinking about kind of what the state of the industry is, like what people want.
Yeah.
And I mean, we're millennial, we're cuspers. I'm only 29. So like we're half Gen Z, half millennial. And I just see there's kind of a distaste for kind of luxury brand scarcity, capitalistic mindset on a lot of things.
Okay.
And ultimately, like, I think people still want like a place to gather and hang out with their friends.
Yeah.
I look at like coffee shops and how well they've done.
Yeah.
And, I think we would love to open like a third space like that, kind of create like a really cool kind of wine lounge. And maybe serve a little bit of coffee. The tough thing with like doing a wine bar traditionally has been that you've always had to go through an importer or like a distributor. And so like on the business side, it sometimes doesn't check out.
Yeah.
Like if I were to sell my wines for wholesale to someone, like I get, a quarter of what I sell direct to someone.
Yeah.
And so we would love to kind of just bypass that, basically open a wine bar, but like we produce what we sell. And I think within that, there's like an inherent sustainability mindset, because you're not, traveling all over the place,
right,
wasting gas and
yeah,
sending your wines places. We just kind of fulfill like what we have kind of here in our little nucleus.
That's one of the things I've actually been thinking about a lot is anywhere you go downtown, it's a wine tasting.
Exactly.
They do the tasting, and then, obviously you can get a glass if you can just skip the tasting. But
yeah,
for the most part, it's like sometimes you just want to go in, get a glass, sit down with your buddy,
yeah,
and not be bothered for half an hour.
Totally.
Yeah.
And like, we're really inspired by other art forms as well. Like I personally love like surf movies, or, and my wife's a huge like fan of interior design and decoration. So, I mean, to kind of come in and maybe, it's almost like you walk in a living room and like have like you know, cool magazines out and things. And
think of Friends, but with wine.
Totally.
Right.
100%, man. Like that's it,
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, there's always going to be like a human need or desire to like be in those kinds of spaces.
Right. Yeah.
Because I mean, like our generation, 100% we're addicted to our phones and social media and all this stuff. But like in our experience, like when we all sit down and we're just having conversations with one another, people put their phones down, like they do.
Oh, yeah.
And they want to have face-to-face interactions. And so giving us kind of space to do that, that's kind of what one of the dreams would be. And then as well as kind of one day maybe getting a little piece of land, like, we don't want to be big,
right,
farming 4 to 6 acres and doing it sustainably. Like, for me, it's less about making the wine off of that. It's more about connecting to nature.
Yeah.
It's kind of more for like me, like a spiritual actualization, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah. No, I'd be one of your regulars if you'd started a wine lounge, because that's actually what I like. Because I get to know the people at in the wine tasting rooms and stuff like that. And at some point, I just know what wine I want.
Yeah.
It's you sit at the bar mostly. Yeah. And that's like, I want to sit off to the side. But if you sit off to the side, you're actually facing the street. And I don't know. Yeah. It'd be kind of cool to have like a wine lounge, kind of like a coffee shop.
Totally. Yeah. And like, let's just do a couple big community tables.
Yeah.
Or like a couple community little couch setups,
Mm-hmm.
and like you rock up with whoever or just by yourself, and then next thing you know, we're talking. There's this great bar in Slow called Jan's Place. It's a vinyl bar,
Mm-hmm.
and Jeff Root, who's the owner there, just great guy, but like is always really accommodating for whoever comes in, and is like, oh, there's 2 people here, 2 people there. Like, I have a 4-top. Like, you guys are friends now.
Yeah.
And like, we've met so many cool people
That's
just going in and doing that. And you get to talking, and you're listening to great music, and you're just drinking some wine, and it's awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's also, especially in Paso, it'd be really cool because people are done wine tasting at some point, right?
Totally.
And then all of a sudden they show up like, oh, what do you guys do here? Grab a glass and sit down.
Exactly. Or a bottle,
Or
like,
a bottle and split it, or if you're having a hard day, or if you want to work on a novel.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, that'd be good. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of I think that's going to be kind of the concept we're going with Cordant as
Mm-hmm.
well. I mean, people kind of know Cordant already.
Yeah.
So, it takes couple miles to turn a big aircraft carrier.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's trying to appeal to my generation, and
Mm-hmm.
because I'm in it. Like,
Yeah.
I just think in my head, okay, if I were to be going somewhere, like what would I want?
Yeah.
Or like what would my sister who's 2 years younger than me, like what would she be into, or something like that. So
Well, I'm 35 and I'm for it. I see it, like my buddies visit me from out of town, and I mean their excuse is because it's Paso, not for me. And when they visit me, they're like, okay, what do we do? What do we want to do? It's like, all right, well, one, we go wine tasting, obviously, but 2, at some point, there's like an hour or hour and a half where we just don't want to do anything.
yeah.
But the only places are restaurants,
Yep.
or more tasting rooms,
Yeah.
or just go hang out at the hotel.
Totally.
There's no real lounge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. And like, don't get me wrong, like I think the tasting rooms are great.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
like learning about like wine education, I'm really passionate about. But
Yeah.
to your point, like at some point you kind of want to just be left alone,
Yeah.
and you just want to have your bottle with your buddies or
Yeah.
whatever, and just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, if anybody's listening and wants to invest, that'd be kind of cool.
I can name a couple wineries that are looking for investors.
Oh, really? That's funny. Yeah. I mean, I had that same idea, but like a community, kind of like a community lounge.
Yeah.
Like a bottle or 2 of every single space downtown. Roughly like 28, I think, are downtown.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, that's a lot. Because then you have to tell their story and stuff like that. So, I don't know.
That also becomes kind of, that becomes difficult.
You
Like,
have to tell every
I've
single
worked
story.
in that
Yeah.
before.
Yeah.
And, I think like, again, like the wine bar is really cool, but you're going for the bar. You're not necessarily buying into any one brand. Versus like if you are the winery and your tasting room happens to just be a bar, like you've kind of bought into my brand.
Yeah.
And like, let's say you're a club member
Mhm.
and you come in, and instead of a tasting, like we give you a free glass of wine.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you'd be there every day,
Yeah.
and you probably buy bottles too.
I actually was a club member at Ascension, and you get a free glass of wine because you're a club member. And I would probably 2 times a week for sure. And I
Great.
end up buying a second glass or a bottle and take
Exactly.
home, you know?
First glass is free. You buy
Yeah.
a second one.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, this is a good business idea, man. We're gonna have to talk more after. So tell me more about like why Paso. I mean, obviously you came up to Cal Poly and then you were in the area, but have you visited Napa and all these other areas that are like known for wine too?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've I've been up to Napa a couple times. We've done Sonoma, Santa Barbara, and then we've been over to France as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, every place has its own special thing going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I won't be the first person to say this about Paso. Like, it's the community here.
Yeah.
I can literally call up pretty much anybody and be like, hey man, like my press just broke. Like, can I bring over, 5 tons of grapes to press?
Yep.
They don't charge you. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, of course, bring it over. Yeah, no problem. Because like what goes around comes around, and it's amazing. It's also just crazy, like how many people are willing to like send, customers your way.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, yeah.
You would think it's like a competition thing, but it's not. They're so happy to vouch for a totally different brand, even if you're making the same varietals or kind of even same vineyards or something. Like they just, everyone wants to help each other. It's really amazing.
Oh yeah, you go to one tasting room and you're like, where else should I go? And they give you like 5 names right away.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone's very like friendly. Yeah.
So is there anything you want to tell the audience or whoever's listening, whoever's watching, like tidbit, or I know you guys are finally have your spot for Cordant.
Mm-hmm.
What's the expectation of opening? Roughly end of the year, beginning of next year. You don't have to give
the new place.
Yeah.
Oh no, we'll be open within 2 months.
Oh okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We're trying to move quick. I mean, we've already got the paperwork.
Oh okay.
Yeah. And it's pretty turnkey ready. Like we don't have to do anything really to.
Just to sign and that's it. Like the sign outdoor on the window.
Yeah, the space is great. Yeah. So we'll be up and running. I mean, these next couple months are usually kind of slower in for tasting rooms.
Yeah.
But like come harvest time, we're gonna be rocking and rolling.
And just because I'm always learning and always like reiterating the process, when is harvest time?
I'll start picking at the end of August typically.
Okay.
And we'll take it. September's a busy month for me.
Okay.
And typically October, we'll tail off by Halloween.
Okay.
Typically. Yeah.
Sweet. Well, thanks, Ryker, for being on the show.
Man, thank
First
you so
ever
much.
Tasting.
Cool.
I may have to revisit something right now. But
we can do that.
I appreciate it, man. And where can they find you?
Idola Wine Co. .com. We've got an Instagram as well. That's kind of my personal Instagram.
Okay. Yeah.
It's a business personal Instagram. So I'm at Cordant every day of the week pretty much. If people want to do a tasting, check out cordantwinery.com. You can do a reservation, give us a ring, or you can email me, Ryker@cordantwinery.com. I mean, I'm at a lot of events too. So if anyone sees me, stop by, say, hey, they heard me on the podcast. That'd be awesome. So.
Well, hopefully you get heard on the podcast. That's the whole point. you know, I always, every time I hear like, oh yeah, I heard, whoever's been on a guest on the show, and they later on was like, oh yeah, somebody told me they saw me on the podcast, stuff like that. I'm like, that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Cause I see I see the views and stuff like that. And they're like, sometimes it feels like it's lacking. Yeah. Cause obviously I have expectations of 1,000 views or something. Yeah. But I get feedback left and right, and it doesn't really reflect the views. And I'm like, okay, so there's obviously something missing. But it's very, very interesting.
That's awesome.
Well, thank you so much for being here,
man. Thank you. This has been a pleasure.